With Billy Barron. Billy, obviously, class of 2014. Hard to believe it's been 6 years since you graduated from Canisius. But for those people that don't know, just talk about your career so far and where it's led you in the last 5+ years.
So this after this past season, that was year number 6 for me. So I've been in 5 different countries, and this past year is the first time that I was able to come back to the same team. Which is pretty standard over in Europe. There's a lot of 1-year contracts. So I wasn't surprised by that. You do get sick of, I guess, the up and moving all the time, packing up, and then 2 months later going to another whole other country and learning the whole layout, the city, and everything. But when you look back on it, it has been exciting getting to learn a bunch of different cultures. I've been able to meet a whole ton of people. I've had some great teammates along the way. I've learned a lot. And the best thing about it is my wife, Valerie, who was Napo at Canisius, graduated in 2014 as well. She's been able to join me the last 5 years. So that's been awesome. It's been exciting.
Obviously coronavirus had a huge impact on your season toward the end of the season. Just talk about sort of the sudden impact that it did have on your year and what kind of season you were having before the coronavirus pandemic hit.
So we were in two leagues. In one of our leagues, the playoffs, the more domestic league was called the Adriatic, which is the surrounding countries. That league was about to start the playoffs. Let's say late March was about to start the playoffs, and then the EuroLeague, we were coming down to like the last 6 games. So we had just won a big game at home against a team from Israel, Maccabi Tel Aviv, and then we had a game on the weekend which we won as well, and then we were getting ready to go play Real Madrid on a Thursday, and that's when every 24 hours the news was really picking up. So we flew to Madrid, and we were getting ready to play that game, and we woke up the next morning on game day, and one of the players had tested positive for the coronavirus, and so right away we knew without them making an official statement, we're like, yeah, we're not going to be able to play this game. So then we had to figure out how to get home that day because Serbia was thinking about closing their borders. So then we came home. We got home late that night. And it was only a couple days later that the president of Serbia issued a statement that gyms were going to be closing and all that stuff. So we were waiting for an official statement from the president. And then once he said that, I think within 24 hours, we were on a flight back home.
Yeah, just talk about that. Obviously, you're back in Florida now. How was the return trip back to the United States? And did you already have plans to go back to Florida, obviously, a lot earlier than you were expecting?
Yeah, so we just came down here because we don't have a house yet. So we came down here to see my in-laws, and obviously the weather here is much better than the Northeast. So we come down here, and it was really like a shock just because you never really anticipate coming home until June. That was probably when we were going to come home, and we were just getting ready to begin the playoffs in one league, and then we were only 2 games out of the EuroLeague playoffs with a favorable last 5 games that I thought we could have made a run. So when you're focused on that, and then all of a sudden you find yourself back in Florida trying to figure out what the next step is, it was definitely a shock. So hopefully, the leagues can make a decision here coming up. As time goes on, I highly doubt that our league in particular will resume. So then it's about, where you're going to be next year. So that's always interesting since I don't have a contract for next year.
Obviously, one really exciting piece of news for you is that you recently became a father. How has that job sort of, been exciting for you and been treating you while balancing basketball and fatherhood?
Yeah, it's been great. It's, first and foremost, it's put everything in perspective. I think, whether I have a good game or a bad game, I'm usually one, if I have a tough game, that I won't really be able to sleep at night. But then when you come home to him, even after I go, 1 for 9, 1 for 10, he's sitting there smiling, and it makes me realize that, basketball really isn't that important. But also does motivate me that much more because, I want to keep getting to a higher level. And so he can remember me and, look back on all the highlights and stuff like that. So there's definitely a whole new sense of motivation. So I'm just trying to play for as long as I can. And hopefully, that's long enough where he can remember. And then after that, it's gravy.
Obviously, you're overseas, but you really seem to keep up to date with Canisius basketball and just college basketball in general. How do you go about doing that? And how is college basketball perceived overseas?
I think Reggie's been doing a great job with the team. Definitely been following along. So he's got those guys on the right track. But college basketball overseas, especially amongst the European players, it's not really a huge thing. There's only a handful of guys from Europe that end up going to play college basketball, and those guys do know about it. But for the other guys, they don't know much. They don't really take it that serious. So usually, I had about 5 Americans on my team this year. So a couple guys were really staying loyal to their colleges. We would smack talk each other and stuff like that. So that's always cool to catch up and know that when you wake up in the morning, I'll see a Canisius score, and they'll see their school score, and then we can come in and have something to talk about during practice that you can relate to. So college basketball, I would say up until March isn't really talked about, but then I think March Madness, everyone talks about that worldwide.
Um, what's one thing overseas or about European basketball that people would be surprised to hear or learn about? Maybe the level of play that you guys play at that people don't understand, or just something about European basketball in general.
It's very emotional, I would say. Especially where I was this past couple of years, it's very emotional. It was like a religion. So the fan bases, like for instance, we have a rival that we share the gym with, and let's just say your daughter is a fan of my team. Well, you're not going to marry someone who's a fan of the other team. It kind of goes that deep. So it's definitely very emotional. The style of play is it can be very calculated. And if you don't do what you're told, you'll get yanked. And then that could lead to you possibly being cut and then being sent home. So everything's really fragile. You got to stay professional, no matter where you are the whole entire time. And you're always going to have bad losses every single year, and people are going to get really emotional in the locker rooms. But you got to keep your head about you and know that there's a long-term plan, and that all your preparation that has led you to that level is going to consistently lead you to further levels. So you got to anticipate the emotions that come with it, because it's definitely way more emotional than how long the season is. And there's not much off time. I think we went 6 weeks this year without an off day. And then, so there's just so much traveling. There's so many games. I don't think people realize the mental toll it also can take on you.
Now that you're back in Florida, you're running an online workout video stream, and you've had some big names join you on there. How did you sort of come up with that idea, and how did it all unfold for you?
My workout plan the past couple of years has been using these bands, so I can do them really from anywhere. So when I got down here to Florida, a lot of people don't have access to gyms, but I was able to really put myself through some good workouts. So I was like, you know what? I might as well try and share what I'm doing here, because I think it's really good stuff, and I would love to, show this to the younger generation, any younger athlete who's looking to come up, play, college basketball and hopefully professional, that I can just lend my knowledge to them. So that's kind of how it all started, and then contacted the EuroLeague, see if they'd be interested, and they jumped all over it. So yeah, it's been a really cool thing just to get my name out there even more, and the knowledge that I have, that if I can just lend it to anyone around the world to help them, we've got some good feedback from that as well. So it's something I'm interested in potentially doing in the future. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do, but just to kind of keep that door open to training guys and lending my knowledge to them.
And then finally, what is your top memory or highlight from your time at Canisius that you still sort of think about today as you're overseas?
Oof, that's a good one. Meeting my wife was obviously a great memory. Um, but basketball wise, there's so many great games. I think it's just the fun that the game really still was. It was more pure fun. Now when you come overseas, it's more of a business. It's there's a lot of money involved. A couple bad games can lead to you being cut and sent home, and then all of a sudden you got to figure out how you're going to pay some bills and stuff like that. So with that in your mind, the entire 9-10 months of a European season, it can take away from just the pure joy of the game of basketball. So I think that's what it is. When I look back from college, when I was in college, I look back on high school and I thought I would be saying the same thing. Now that I'm professional, I look back in college and say the same thing. So just the fun that I have with my teammates too. Like I still talk to Jordan and Chris all the time. Just the camaraderie we built, and then playing obviously for my father, something I'll never forget. That's something that not too many people get to do, especially at that level. So just the one word of fun that I really associate that word with basketball.
Well, Billy, I appreciate you taking some time. Good luck, stay in shape down there, and good luck whenever the season does restart.
Thanks, Garrett. Appreciate you having me, man.